it was not common to have pets working while these animals are so affected by humans that you can no longer just leave them to be their natural selection. You really need to have veterinarians. I became the first full-time vet in Uganda. I discovered that people are making gorillas sick. Gorillas lost their hair, started developing white skin. It really did look like skin. We started to really suspect that it came from humans, and that's exactly what happened. When I became a vet, I thought I should only focus on one. But having seen the gorillas are getting sick from people, I realized I also have to start caring about the people. The One Health approach addresses the needs of humans, animals, and the environment together. So we find that we need to improve community well-being by improving health, working with established community health workers, and to do conservation work. We also improve the languages. We're building a brand community at our Gorilla Conservation Cafe. We only buy coffee from farmers who are in the park. People know that when they come, they're helping to save gorillas. We have a team of gorilla guardians, and once these local communities see the gorillas in their gardens,
It's running
they can call out the gorilla guardians and safely without hurting anyone. We are currently engaging 500 coffee farmers, 119 gorilla guardians, 270 conservation team members, who will reach 30,000 people. When I first started, mountain gorillas used to be critically endangered, and now is at minimum of 1,063. Over time, the diseases that the gorillas are being exposed to are reducing. It shows that when you engage communities meaningfully, you can actually have a recovery of population. Just to say more about that. All along this conservation journey, I've been seeing very few women. I hope I'm inspiring women and men to break those barriers, and we hope that through the award, we'll be able to inspire people.
Wow. Amazing, fantastic. I think we learned a thing or two. If we didn't know about gorillas, now we know. Yeah. I hope we're just getting excited. Let's just warm up. We are about to now start understanding this amazing book. And after that beautiful presentation that shows us the amazing work that Dr. Gladys is doing, we are going to just get to understand more about Dr. Gladys' journey and where she started, why she's doing what she's doing. And just with opening thoughts, I think the first question that I would be interested, and I'm sure the audience would also learn, is maybe could you start by just telling us and sharing with us what inspired you to write this book, Walking with Gorillas? What inspired you to write? Wow, we're already on YouTube. so I'm sure we really love to understand what inspired you to write this book and what message or experience prompted you to put pen to paper.
Thank you so much, Ash. I would say that I have been wanting to write a book for a while, having set up the first state department in the Uganda National Parks, which became Uganda Wildlife Authority. At the end of the 4.5 years, I felt I had very unique experiences that needed to be shared because we had to overcome so many challenges just to get the vet unit off the ground. First of all, convincing people why animal welfare is important in conservation, and then raising the money, and doing things that people didn't expect us to do. We moved animals. You get to read in the book. It was always a debate whether or not you should treat a gorilla because everyone thought you should leave wild animals to themselves, and natural selection is the only way forward. But when you disrupted them so much, it isn't. So there was a lot of educating and advocating to my colleagues within the wildlife department. And then while moving animals, you get to read about, like, should you even do it? And it's always a big thing. But I think it also supported this exploration of national parks, really make around the park. And this made me feel well, this is something we need to write about, and maybe it's something we need to start thinking about. But married, have children after that to America to do a zoo medicine residency and masters in specialized medicine. I got so busy. I got married, have it's like then we decided to set up a non-profit conservation for public health, and it's been so busy. This year we celebrate 20 years.
Wow, congratulations.
And so now I suddenly felt like I need to start writing because you start to forget everything. And yet I really felt that it was going to share these experiences. Not only was it making people realize the importance of animal welfare in conservation, but now human welfare in conservation. When we started the One Health journey, conservation through public health, and everything else that we planned along the way. And I think just as I was thinking of beginning to write before the pandemic began, then the pandemic began. And many people asked me, did it give you time to write? Yes and no. Yes, because people were not doing as much traveling around the world because of global lockdowns, but no, because we're extremely busy because of our one health approach to conservation, which prevents disease between people and gorillas and other wildlife. So we were really, really, really busy. But that made it even more urgent to write the book because we had discovered a new way of addressing such issues, a new approach to conservation, and a new One Health. And we used to talk about it, and people in the used to think it was serious enough. But when the pandemic began, they're like, oh, now I know what you mean. Yeah. And so I felt it was even more urgent to get the book written. And I was very excited when it was finally published in March this year in America.
Wow, that's amazing. And I think every one of us should not leave this room without working with gorillas. Because I do believe that there is a lot of information that we are going to be learning by just reading about Dr. Gladys' experience. And maybe going back to understanding how you arrived at writing this book, could you please just tell us, I know that you've had such a remarkable career as a primatologist and a vet. Can you tell us something about your personal journey with gorillas and how it led you to the creation of this book from? I know I've had stories about when you started when you were very young and getting there, maybe just give us a snippet of how life was.
I'll say I grew up at home with very many pets. And as a last born of a family of six, the sister who I followed is here today. Veronica was 5 years older than me, 5 years and a few more months. So we're just outside each age bracket to play, and the pets became my companions and friends. But later, a few years, maybe when I was 8 or 9, we had the Cuban ambassador came to live across from us, and they acquired a pet velvet monkey. These days it's not encouraged, but those days it didn't matter so much. And this monkey liked coming home because at home we had interesting things as a child, and there were many animals to play with. Whereas where he was, it was just 2 adults, the ambassador and his wife. And they became friends with my mom, so they were always visiting her. So then the monkey used to come home, sit on the gate, stare down at me. And then when I wasn't looking, he'd jump down and start pulling the cats and dogs' tails, going to the kitchen and steal bananas and fruits, other fruits. And then one time I was practicing the piano and I felt like I wasn't alone. As you know, Trish, it's a feeling you get when you work with wildlife. You can know that, oh, not alone. Sometimes it's a lion or an elephant or something. So then I realized he was watching me. And I said, let me see what he can do. So I moved out of the room. He sat down on the stool and played one note with one finger. I was like, wow. So primates are this intelligent. Not only do his fingernails look like mine, but he can play the piano. I was like, wow. Of course, he ran out of the room. And I think that's when I started getting fascinated by primates. A few years, in my last year of high school, I got an opportunity to revive the Wildlife Club in Uganda, Jubilee Secondary School. And we took the children to the national park. It was so exciting, but the only thing that disappointed me is that there was very little wildlife in the park. Like, we got there and they told us that we can have a walking safari because there's no predators. The elephants went to Democratic Republic of Congo. There had been a lot of poaching during the Idi Amin days. And so I felt, maybe I could be a bit of a greenback for wildlife. But even that, I reason why I really wanted to do something for the wildlife is because my father was killed by Idi Amin. He was a minister in the government before Idi Amin came into power, first government after independence. And he developed the country and did so much for the country. So I thought I could continue his legacy by bringing back the wildlife, because my family used to tell me there was so much wildlife, when I was a baby, but I was too young to remember. And so I started that path of why don't I be a vet who also wants wildlife? I've been growing up with so many vets at home. And then when I started at the vet school, Royal Vet College, University of London, you're allowed to work with animals of your choice. So I came back and first worked with chimpanzees in the zoo, who were victims of the bushmeat trade. And then I worked with chimpanzees in the wild, in Budongo Forest. The ones in the zoo were very intelligent as well. They used to escape from their cages when you're not looking. And then they wanted to be carried back because they missed their mothers. And I could really feel that emotional connection. Great apes, we're all great apes actually. Humans are also great apes, and they're extremely intelligent. And so after working with them in the wild and in captivity, I finally got to work with the mountain gorillas. Now they were habituated to tourism, and I could work with them. And the 1 month I spent in Windy, studying parasites and bacteria in the fecal samples, was a life-changing moment for me, because I got to realize that, first of all, there were very few in number. They're really threatened. Their habitat is slowly being cut. This was a very hard edge between the community and the park. And we could make them sick, because when I arrived, first week I arrived, I got a very bad cold. So I couldn't go anywhere near the gorillas. I was so disappointed. I was getting desperate. I thought, after wanting to study them, will I ever actually see them? Thankfully, I got better, and I could go and visit them. And even while we were there, some of them disappeared, to DRC, and we had to look for them. There's so many things that happened that made me realize how threatened they are. And I thought, why don't I become a full-time wildlife vet? And so I wrote to the director of the national parks and said, I want to be your first vet. This was vet's doing wildlife. And 2 months later, he wrote back and said, the job is waiting for you. I'm so excited. So that's how my journey began. And actually, the journey of gorillas began that month that I spent there as a vet student. But it never stopped. So just 1.5 years later, I was back in Windy, this time as a first wildlife vet in Uganda, because of the mountain gorillas. And they felt they needed to hire a vet, because tourism had just begun, and they were concerned that tourism being a fatal flu such as COVID-19.
Wow, amazing. And I know that this work that you do, the passion that you have, it can also be daunting and challenging. And so when we know that conservation, especially in a male-dominated sector, conservation is such a male-dominated sector. You breaking the stereotypes of fast wildlife vets, aiming at that, and not just also a Black woman who is coming in. I'm sure it definitely was not easy, and it's amazing that you're carrying on your father's legacy. No matter how daunting what lays ahead, this is definitely an amazing opportunity that is bigger than all of us. And maybe just tell us some of the challenges you faced when you talked about getting sick and wondering why you continue. What are some of the major challenges that you faced in your work, and perhaps some of the most rewarding moments and successes?
I've faced many challenges and many rewarding moments. But I would say that one of the biggest challenges was getting people to understand that you shouldn't even touch a wild animal. Like, if it gets sick, they all believe if it's a sleeping warthog, it's the next thing for the lion, which I agree with. But because the lion may starve. But then you're talking about gorillas, which were down to about 600 at the time, and I first started working with them and studying them in 1994. And you can't just leave it to natural selection. We've already encroached on their habitat, we're introducing human diseases, we're visiting them, they're interacting with people, and just getting people to understand that we need to treat them. I spent the first year, actually it didn't take too long. I spent the first 9 months explaining what a vet does. But what happened is, then the gorillas got sick. And it wasn't from the tourists, it was from the local community. They like to go outside the park to eat people's banana plants. Now that the habitat has been cut and they decided to go to places where they used to range before it was cut, and because they lost their favorite people, they started ranging outside again. So when they told me that they're losing hair and developing white scaly skin, I asked a human doctor friend of mine, what's the most common skin disease in people? She said scabies. So we went through the right treatment for the gorilla. And when we got there, we found that it was scabies and we treated the gorilla. And we're now trying to find out, how can we prevent the community members from making the gorilla sick. That's when we started that wild health journey. So another challenge has been trying to convince people that human health is very important in conservation. And because of that, it's made it difficult to raise funds. First of all, even raising funds for the vet unit was very difficult because vets were not expected to treat wildlife. Then when we started conservation through public health, it was very difficult to raise funds because people are like, we're used to only funding animal health alone and human health alone, or wildlife conservation alone and public health alone. And you're bringing it all together. So it was difficult to find that right kind of donor who could see that we needed this holistic approach, but in order to sufficiently address this problem. And I'm very grateful to those donors who we started out with, like MacArthur Foundation, the Development Corporation Ireland, US Fish and Wildlife Service, Wildlife Conservation Society, USA came in later. They all started coming in, but it was always a lot of convincing, and that convincing has continued. But when the pandemic began, the COVID-19 pandemic, it became easier because people are like, how do we know what you've been trying to do? So that's been one of the big challenges, convincing people this new approach to conservation and then raising money for it. But you did also mention that I'm a Black woman in conservation. That in itself has been a challenge. Conservation is very male dominated. When I started out, there were no female rangers, which meant women never went out to the field. So they used to look at me rather strangely. But I brought a unique skill to the table. So the men respected me for that. If an animal was sick, they had to call me out to treat it. When it came to moving animals, I was needed to make sure that they stay alive through the translocations. So they respected me because of my unique skill. And I never really noticed that they weren't respecting me. But there were no women rangers. And when we started conservation through public health, it became even more obvious. There were very few women heading in conservation institutions or, anywhere. So it's been a challenging journey in trying to convince people of the value of that women bring to the table. And that's why I'm on the Leadership Council for Women in Environment Africa. And I'm also part of the Women in Nature Network. I came to Kenya in July for a meeting, and we're setting up a chapter in Uganda. And a lot of these women groups started joining them because now, thankfully, after all these years, over 25 years, 20% of the rangers are women, and that's very exciting. So they're holding a gun and they're going out to the field, just like the men. And that's just very exciting. So it's nice to go there, and my colleagues are not only men, but there's some women who I can go into the field.
Wow. So you're shining light and creating a pathway for many young women to follow, and we really appreciate that. I know you talked about human beings and gorillas, and just before I go into asking a little bit about human gorilla coexistence, for people who are not familiar with, they may not be so familiar with why gorillas, why is it important to conserve this ecosystem and life of our gorillas? What can we learn from them, and why should we care about conserving them?
Why gorillas? I know you don't have them in Kenya, but gorillas are in East Africa. So they also belong to Kenyans. They belong to everybody in East Africa. and actually, the Wildlife Authority has is that all East African residents, including Ugandans, Kenyans, Tanzanians, Rwandese, can pay much less to the gorillas. People pay $700 for a non-residents to visit them, but East African residents pay $70, 250,000 shillings. So why are gorillas so important? They're important in very many ways. Number one, we're so closely related. We share 98.4% genetic material, almost the same DNA.
You know they are your brothers and sisters.
They are our cousins, yes, our close cousins. And they're so similar to us. When you meet them, the first time I met them, I felt a very deep connection. The first mountain gorilla I saw was in the wild. He was on his own on my first day, and I stared into his eyes and I felt a very deep connection. They're very intelligent. They recognize people by sight, not by smell, like most animals like dogs. They are very gentle, vulnerable. They're actually not like King Kong makes them out. They're only fierce if attacked. But otherwise, in general, gorillas, they only attack if they feel threatened. Otherwise, they're extremely gentle giants. And but they're so few in number. And they have so many threats: habitat loss, disease, poaching. In Uganda and Rwanda, people don't eat gorillas, but in DRC, they believe if you eat a gorilla, or in other countries in Africa, if you eat a gorilla, you can become as strong as a gorilla. But in Uganda and Rwanda, the Batwa who lived in the forest believed if you looked into their eyes, it was bad luck. So they protected them in a way because they avoided them. So they have a lot. It's so important that we don't lose them and future generations can see them. So when I went there as a vet student and I saw there were only about 600 left, I was like, I need to do something, otherwise they're really going to go extinct. But one thing gorillas have done for Uganda is they put Uganda back on the tourism map. During the Idi Amin era, so many animals were poached. Uganda used to be called the Pearl of Africa. I think my family told me that when I was a baby, we went to Manchester Falls and there was so much wildlife. But then a lot of it was killed. You know, he started hunting in the national parks. National parks are supposed to be a safe haven. It was hunting elephants there. And then that's the army that came to overthrow him, killed even more animals. And so people never used to go to Uganda. We just come to Kenya, Tanzania, that's it. And maybe they'll go to Rwanda to visit gorillas because tourism was just beginning, but they also had a lot of conflict, you know, rebels and all of that time, during that time. You know, they had the genocide in 1994. But then when gorilla tourism began in 93, two gorilla groups, tourists started to come, and now we have 25 habituated groups. You only allow 8 people per gorilla group a day, so a maximum of 200 people can be in the forest at any one time. But each one pays $700 if they're all foreign residents. And that's so gorilla tourism is contributing 60% of the budget for the Uganda Wildlife Authority. And it's putting Uganda back on the tourism map. So the top 4 tourist destinations in East Africa are Buwindi Penjubo National Park, Okello National Park in Rwanda, Buwindi Penjubo National Park in Uganda, Serengeti in Tanzania, and Masai Mara in Kenya.
Masai Mara. Amazing. Maybe we should just take a poll and ask who has seen a gorilla in real life here? Let's see. So we have one.
Maybe family members shouldn't come.
So none of us have seen gorillas, yeah? So maybe we should put it. I have. I went to Rwanda and I was able to get to see them, and you're right. In East Africa, they have a lower price for East Africa. Same price what we pay is what we pay. So you can go to Rwanda, you can go to Uganda and get to see these majestic animals, why it's really important. If not for anything, I think Dr. Gladys has convinced us today to put it in our bucket list to support conservation of gorillas one way or the other. And I think it comes at the right time because if only one person in the audience has seen them, the book is going to prepare you to be even more of an expert. When you go to see them, you know how to behave, what to do, and I hope that this is something that we can all look into.
And actually, speaking of which, my family all had to see.
Yeah, and the family is same thing. I don't with the only two. I don't with the only two. She makes sure we don't see the one that were far away. And I remember when we got back, the butterflies, it was like in the garden, all sorts of butterflies, butterflies, of course. It was, but
Yeah.
And then I took my mom as well.
Oh, wow.
And I took her. She has the photo in my book. And my sister said that we told the gorillas to go close for her. Because it took her less than an hour to get there. She took her 4 hours. But you can't, there were animals. Yeah, because my mom and she have made the 4-hour trek. Yes. And she was like, oh, they just gave me vegetarian jam. She thought they were very fierce. She didn't want me to study them with the beginning. She was so scared. And having seen them, she's like, they live in a big salad bowl.
They are amazing creatures, and put it in your bucket list to at least go experience seeing your cousins. And I just want to go back to the issue you mentioned about human beings and gorillas. When it comes to human gorilla coexistence, working with gorilla is definitely likely addressing this issue of a delicate balance between human communities and gorilla habitats. Can you share your insights on fostering peaceful coexistence between these two worlds? And I know your organization, Conservation through Public Health, is doing some amazing work that is dealing with that.
Yes. Actually, once I realized that you couldn't protect the gorillas without improving the health of the human neighbors, it set me on a next path in my life, a big turning point. Because when we met with the 1,000 community members in 8 villages where gorillas were always coming out, we went with the community conservation warden and ranger, we went to the district health assistant, and I told them what the problem was, how the gorillas got sick. And I was about to tell them the solution, and the ranger touched my arm and said, let me come up with a solution. And those who had already started to benefit from gorilla tourism, it created jobs. 90% of the parks suffer from the local community. People can sell crafts and accommodation and food. So they were already feeling the benefits of the gorillas. And they were very willing to listen to what we had to say. And they were like, we don't want to make the gorillas sick, but we need health services to be brought closer to us. And we need to keep having this health education. And we also need to strengthen the human gorilla conflict resolution team that has gorillas back when they come out. And we bring coats and gumboots and food rations. And a lot of those things that we made are what we used to start up the NGO. But one thing I realized is by improving the health of communities, it not only reduces the risk of disease to the gorillas, or disease spreading back and forth, because people can also get disease by eating wildlife such as, animals in the forest like daika, bush pig, that the people in Uganda like to eat in the forest. But by improving community health, you show them that you're caring about them and not only the wildlife in the forest. And because healthcare is a basic human right. And so one of the rangers said to me, the head ranger was like, I'm so glad Dr. Gladys that you started this NGO because the community are really going to appreciate it. That you're caring about their health. He's from the local community. So we made them care about conservation because we're also addressing their health. We show them that they also matter. So that's really important. Improving community health, we're finding is improving community attitudes to conservation, and we're collecting a lot of data on that. And I write about this a lot in the book. But then also improving community livelihoods, which a lot of people are doing, and conservation education as well, and making them to become the leaders of these efforts. Because if they're always waiting for you to do it for them, then if you're not around, they'll stop doing it. And so we have village health, community health workers who we taught to do conservation work. They visit people's homes. Each one is in charge of about 40 homes, and they're really changing people. People are tolerating gorillas much more. They're getting healthy, and as people are getting healthy, gorillas are falling sick less often from human disease, from the local communities. So it's all very much a case of help attending to their needs and then getting them to support conservation when finding this journey of human-wildlife coexistence. And the gorillas have really lifted many people out of poverty, so they appreciate them. Although COVID was a challenge when we were not tourists, poaching went up in a way it had never been before, because people now have become to depend too much on tourism to keep going, which is also isn't good. It was a big eye opener.
And I think during COVID, one of the things that we did as well, like Direct, was trying to create awareness about these zoonotic diseases. And I think that is one of the areas that you're working and this unique approach to fostering peaceful coexistence between the two worlds of human beings and gorillas is really an amazing model that I think a lot of conservation and other organizations should be able to look into. Because sometimes we do one and we focus on one area and ignore another without really understanding that connection, where if you become sick, they become sick. If you're healthy, they're healthy. If they're healthy, you're healthy. And I think it's really remarkable what you're doing. Yeah, amazing. And maybe just moving into learning more about your work also probably involves a lot of research being in the field. When I look at your book, as you can see, Gladys is really dressed for the woods, you know? It doesn't come easy. This is work that really involves very extensive fieldwork, I imagine. So maybe with this kind of work, could you describe particularly memorable or challenging moments from your time in the field that readers can expect from this book? Because I'm very curious once I see that jacket. Yes.
Oh, I've had lots of memorable moments. Let me see. Which ones can I describe? We've had lots of memorable moments. I remember one time we were trying to chase a gorilla. Like we're trying to get, one of my very first cases, they said to me that the warden called me and said, now that they knew we had a vet, the wardens won't come to me faster than everyone else because they're in the field and they're dealing with issues every day. So a gorilla left the park and started scratching people, because they provoked him. He decided to settle in community land and he was a lone silverback gorilla. But he felt, because he was half habituated, he felt safe enough in community land, but not safe enough to get close to. So the warden called me and said, come and translocate the gorilla. He's scratching people. So we went with 2 vets from Rwanda, a mountain gorilla vet project, and the plan was we're going to translocate him to another part of the forest where the warden said there are no gorillas there, so he won't fight with anyone. He didn't ask himself, why are there no gorillas? We didn't ask ourselves that question. We're like, let's just follow what the warden said. So the next day, after we saw where he was, he charged us. We went back, said, let's not frighten him. The next day, we went to get him moved. The community members made a big stretcher. They normally carry people who are sick on stretchers over those very steep hills because they can't even carry them for 20 miles. But we said this has to be a bigger stretcher. So when we went down to dancing, the vet who I was with from Rwanda, he ended up doing the dancing because that time I hadn't even got dancing equipment. I just started out and no one really understood what a vet does, so I hadn't even got dancing equipment. So he brought his own, and we gave him the dose you normally give a calm gorilla that's habituated. It wasn't enough for one that's semi-wild. And so he started going down, but not really. And the anesthetic started wearing off, and he just ran. He was so scared. He ran and we chased him for 4 hours. Could you believe it? Until at the end I thought, and then we ran out of energy because then we went into the forest where we wanted him to be. I remember we ran out of water, we drank water from the stream. We were like, okay, there are dirty feet in the water, and the people were helping us. But either you die of cholera or you die of dehydration. So we just drank the water. Choose your fix. Choose your fix. And then at the end, I said to them, you know what? I'm too tired. I can't go up. I'm going to sleep here. They said, no. I said, I can't go. I have no energy. I'm just too tired. Because now the adrenaline had gone away. Then the vet house for with the Jonathan Sliman started walking up the hill. And he told somebody, go and help. I just told people, she needs help. And so as I was just there, a lady came up to me and she just grabbed hold of my hand and walked up with me. Slowly, slowly. And she was the first woman I'd seen out there in the wild. She was wearing a dress, barefooted. She grabbed my arm and we walked slowly to get to the top. Everybody clapped. 2 hours later, 2 or 3 hours later, we got to the top. Everybody clapped. And then later on, we all decided now we should have this human gorilla conflict to have gorillas back. Shouldn't be vets chasing gorillas or rangers because they get mixed signals, they're very intelligent. It should be people who should be their friends, the community members. And so Yeah, that was a challenging moment. But then many years later, during the pandemic, we went back to that same village because that time when we lived in that gorilla, we were trying to move that gorilla. There were no hotels. So when people were trying, poaching had gone out, the gorilla sadly had been killed by hungry bushmeat poaching. That same community in 2020. So we went to talk to the communities. We said, even if they're not tourists, you should still protect the gorillas because they're our heritage. And tourists will come back one day. And I told them, and I remember when I came and stayed here, there was no single hotel in this part of Uganda. And we stayed in a school. We got a sleeping bag, slept on the floor. We realized that the roof was leaking when it rained at night. So we woke up, we were cold and went in the morning. There was nothing to eat, just ate a banana from the community and went and did our work. I said, now it's changed. This whole area has about 20 lodges. You know, people are getting jobs. You're employed by the park. The gorillas have done a lot for you. And then I said, and that time we were going to move a gorilla. I said, does anyone remember? Someone put up their hand and said, we remember you very well. You're like a city girl from Kampala. We didn't think you'd even make it down there. And apparently the nurse I was being insisted. I remember the doctor said, you have to bring a mattress for the gorilla. He was a British man. And they found it strange because when they carry their people, they don't use mattresses. But he said, you guys insisted. This gorilla has to have a mattress. And they made a very big stretcher. And I said, I know the lady who put me on the hill. And he's like, is she still around? Is she still alive? He said, yes. So the next day we went to see her. She was so happy. Yeah, and I went with my two sons. She showed me her children. So now we're in touch all the time. And I did ask her that, why did you help me out at that time? She said, because she was like, a woman can go down there, I have to go and help her. And you know, it was just nice. We kind of were challenging society, no one both of us. And I'm glad that we reconnected.
Wow, very interesting. As we move closer, beyond the book, maybe what can you be able to maybe let us know when it comes to now conservation advocacy? How can individuals and communities get involved in conservation efforts? What steps can you take to make that positive impact? And especially, we've had about this challenging experience you go through. It's not easy. What can people do to help?
People can do a lot. You know, they can follow groups like ours, one at Direct Conservation of Public Health on social media, because we're always posting messages. This week is I was calling it World Gorilla Week. Wonderful that we're launching the book in Kenya, but on the 24th September is World Gorilla Day. And so we're posting many messages out there, raising awareness about gorillas. People can visit the gorillas, you know, and be responsible tourists. Since the pandemic began, everyone now has to wear masks because you're protecting the gorillas not only from COVID, but other respiratory diseases that could happen, and that's happening all the time. You could buy gorilla conservation coffee. There's some here, and this is what we do with this coffee is we give farmers a good price for good coffee, so they don't have to enter the park to poach and collect firewood. So if they need meat instead of hunting an animal, they can get buying the money from coffee. You can subscribe to our e-newsletters, become a donor, and for the community members, you know, there's so many things that we're engaging them in. Right now, we're working with National Geographic they're funding a program called STEAM, which is Science, Technology, Engineering, Arts, and Maths. And we're engaging children from 10 to 24-year-old youth in order to get them to come up with projects, such as recycling projects to reduce the rubbish, because the gorillas are always coming out, and other animals, baboons, and other wildlife, even elephants. We also have elephants in green, and there's a little bit of elephant-human conflict. Just getting them, some of them are putting up poetry projects, football clubs, all of them about protecting wildlife. So anyone, wherever they are, can do something. If you're a member of parliament, and the table and the debate comes on the floor that we need to cut down trees to plant sugarcane, you should be there to say no. We have to keep our trees going. And that's another reason why you have to promote local leadership in conservation. Because those people end up becoming members of parliament. But if they care about the wildlife and nature, when they get there, they make the right decisions for conservation and wildlife as a legislator. So everybody, wherever we are in our unique positions, can do something for the wildlife.
Amazing. And just in terms of your aspirations, what are your hopes and aspirations for the future of gorillas?
Well, some of the hopes and aspirations would love the number of mountain gorillas is going up. So it's doubled since I first started working with them. And they're now over 1,000 mountain gorillas, 1,063, or possibly more, because that census was done in 2018. And we want the numbers to keep growing, but the space isn't enough for them to grow. So we need to expand their habitat so that they're not always in conflict with people. Would love our parks to expand into other parts of Africa that have gorillas. 10 countries in the world, in Africa, have gorillas naturally occurring. We want our One Health approach to also expand to other areas, to other wildlife. We've done some work in Queen Elizabeth National Park, where I first went as a wildlife club chairperson to be the secondary school wildlife club. But we worked with partners, even with the chimpanzees, Dongo. We're really glad that Dr. Jim Wood was written forward because her, well, also people in JGI, Jim Crow Institute, are now implementing One Health approaches to conservation. So we partner with them, like in Tanzania and in Uganda. And then also, it's scaling it up to other places. But one thing that my other aspiration is that we get a lot more African leadership in primate research and conservation and all wildlife conservation in general. And many more women to engage in conservation and women to head conservation institutions. That's something I think it's really important because women face unique challenges, and if they're only run by men, those challenges won't always be addressed. So it's good to have a balanced approach and a balanced participation in conservation as well. So moving from 20% rangers to 50% rangers, we're glad that with our village health and conservation team approach, half of them are men and half are women, partly because women are mainly engaged in healthcare and men mainly engaged in conservation. And so now when we do both, we find that we're able to achieve the gender balance. It's great.
Wow. And in terms, thank you so much. When it comes to us wrapping up our questions, and I'll be providing, and I'd like to open it up to the audience. But your final thoughts, as we wrap up, could you please share with us a takeaway message? I know you shared some quite powerful messages in terms of what people can do, but maybe what's the takeaway that you hope readers will be able to carry after in working with gorillas?
I'll say maybe the main takeaway messages would be it's important to protect endangered species like gorillas because when our futures are intertwined, when the gorilla's future is secure, ours will be secure in many ways. And we can't ignore them if we're going to have a bright planet for all of us. And also it's very important to engage communities in conservation and realize that One Health approaches really work. They have great benefits for conservation, for public health, for sustainable development. And it's very important to follow your dreams and the rest will follow. Wow. As well as engaging women. I mean, engaging women, allowing women to do things that everyone thinks is just male-dominated, like wildlife conservation, as he says. But parents should allow their children to do what they want to do, because ultimately that's when they'll be happiest, and that's when they'll achieve the most.
Amazing. Thank you so much. And just before we conclude, I'd like to now, as I said, open the floor for questions, and I am sure we do have lots of questions, if I'm not wrong. This is exciting. Working with gorillas is a book that I definitely don't want to put down once I'm done from this stage. So, anybody, okay? I'm gonna give my microphone. Ray, can you help us with or
maybe I can just speak. I just can't hear. Okay, so first of all, I wasn't actually planning to be here, but just seeing this and sounding about this is an amazing experience, and just listening to your story. I'm looking forward to reading the book. But my question is, based on your interest from childhood in bringing back wildlife or doing something for wild. How was your journey, and how did you feel when you made the discovery that humans were leading to the illnesses affecting gorillas, and also building, tying together human health, the public health, and wildlife health? How did you feel when you made that discovery?
Yeah, thank you. It was a real big eye opener for me. Like, because when they told me they were losing hair and developing white skin, I was like, that's really strange. The vets in Rwanda, when Martin Luther project had been operating, had never seen this. And when we realized that it came from people, just thought, wow, we can't really protect the gorillas when you have so many poor people around them who don't have health care. And it also made a lot of sense to me because even when I was going up to visit the gorillas, they were always waving at me, they were always excited to see me. And I felt, I wish I could do something for them, but I'm focused on, treating the gorillas. And so at that point, I thought, actually, there's no way we can protect these endangered species without engaging these very people who are natures and going up to see the gorillas. So it was a very important moment in my life and a big turning point that we have to address the health of people and gorillas and other wildlife together. And that's what we're doing in conservation for public health. It's been an interesting journey. For example, we look for other diseases. We're always monitoring the health of the gorillas. Every month we collect samples from all of them, from their likeness, non-invasive samples, and when it's abnormal, fecal samples, and we test for all kinds of things. During the pandemic, we've been testing for COVID, but we're also testing for, parasites and bacteria, and sometimes we're finding that the human beings also have those parasites and bacteria. But at least now we know that we don't only have to think of treating gorillas, we can also treat the people and the livestock, the cows and goats, of which the gorillas are also picking up those parasites when they go into community land. So then we're finding ways of not only treating, but telling them, have water traps, don't, bathe in the water and defecate anywhere. Lots of things that we're doing to improve community hygiene so that the gorillas are less likely to get sick. And ultimately, when the community hygiene improves, their welfare and well-being also improves. So it's made me realize that if the gorillas conservation is to move forward, people also have to move forward as well, and we can't move forward without each other.
I think we have another question here. Thank you so much.
One more question.
Okay.
As a veterinarian, do you have to work with public health officials, or is your knowledge in veterinary, especially with the relationship between gorillas and humans, transferable to public health from a public health perspective?
Yes, we work very closely with public health officials. In fact, what you call One Health, another terminology, another description is vets, medical doctors, and environmental practitioners working together, public health practitioners. And so we're always working with them. Because, for example, I can give a case of we're trying to look at Giardia. It's a parasite that if you get it, I've had it. You feel like you're going to die because you have vomiting and diarrhea at the same time. It's quite prevalent in the communities there. So we looked for it in gorillas, in people, and in their animals, their cows. And we have found over time it's going down in the gorillas as community health is improving. But let's say, you find that it's very high in the infants from where looking for, like Giardia. And so there we found that 40% of the infants have it, and they went and educated the mothers that they should always boil the water before they give it to the baby, and they should always collect water, cut the water taps, so they don't defecate in the water. So you find that now we're always dealing with public health, veterinary medicine, and actually in veterinary medicine we taught veterinary public health, which is almost the same as human public health. The principles are the same. Yeah.
Thank you. We have one question here. Is there anybody else who has a burning question? Okay, so once we're done here, then we'll go to them.
Thank you, Gladys, for that amazing talk and nutritional moderating. It's interesting because, really gorillas are such an iconic species in Africa and the only place in Africa where you have gorillas. So I'm just wondering what we can do then to have more Africans interested, especially East Africans, because we have gorillas in Uganda, we have gorillas in Rwanda, and how to make it. I mean, it is accessible in terms of that it's cheap, right? It's $70 compared to $700, but I just wonder Are there any efforts maybe to work with schools or, think about maybe the idea of having a conservation as part of curriculum from a very early age? Because I know, at least for me, when I was growing up in Kenya, conservation was not even a subject. And I just wonder if children who were taught about gorillas and about just, the incredible things that you shared about the space with, if that would maybe maybe more interested and just the idea of looking at conservation as an everyday thing rather than, as a separate thing. So we don't see the gorillas as separate from us or any other wildlife, but as a part of us and we're engaged from a very early age. So is there anything, what are the possibilities that exist, I suppose, in terms of engaging the next generation very early, since they're going to be the next leaders as well?
Yeah, thanks for your thoughts on that. They shouldn't be seen as separate from us. I think our forefathers lived in wildlife. If you go many hundreds of years back, because it was more, there's a lot more wildlife and they learned how to live with it. And they kind of lived with it and they coexisted with it. And I think it's kind of going away as we take up the spaces of wildlife and it's building up in the area. For example, the two mountain gorilla populations are now separated, they've never been. And so what we're doing is we need to keep engaging the next generation. And some of what we're trying to do in the next 20 years of CTPH is trying to influence the conservation education curriculum so that some of these things are learned at a young age. You don't have to wait till you're much older to learn that wildlife is important. It should just become a part of you. And I think that's something that we really need to do a lot more. It's good that they're doing it. And as wildlife directors, National Geographic Explorers, we're always taught to communicate science. And we're so glad that NGOs actually funding that youth project and youth education, children education project. And actually, the gorillas are not only found in Uganda, Rwanda, DRC, but in 10 countries in Africa, including Gabon, Cameroon, but those are different subspecies. You have Eastern Lowland, Western Lowland, and Cross River, and they're all going down in Uganda. All of them, apart from the mountain gorillas. So they're all still critically endangered, but the gorillas are all now just endangered. Come off that critical list. And part of the reason is because people around mountain gorilla habitats are benefiting so much from mountain gorillas. Unlike those other countries where there's no tourism, there's no health care for the local community, there's no community benefits. And many of the gorillas are not even in protected areas. They're trying to look after them outside protected areas, kind of like the conservancies you have in Kenya. And they don't see any benefits, And actually, one of the dreams I'd like to have is make sure that all across Africa, people benefit from gorillas and they can really be protected.
Yeah, and also one of the things we are creating through storytelling, we have content that we did just for children. Today is actually World Rhino Day, and World Gorilla Day is coming up. But one of the things we do is we take kids back to learn about wildlife.
Thank you. It's natural habitat, but we have also moved forward in terms of making Africans at the forefront, where documentary series for National Geographic have been made here in Kenya by Wildlife Direct and conservation partners. And we want to continue with these shows and fellow amazing conservationists like Dr. Gladys to tell the story of this work in a way that children can understand. So we will continue working in those areas to see that we have young children like so I think we are on the right path and we want to do more of this and promote and encourage children to be conservation leaders at this particular age, not tomorrow. When I grew up, we were told leaders of tomorrow. But we want kids to take care of that. And of course, if you want to learn more about it, we have an amazing package here. I am so bad at pronouncing names, so I'm not going to butcher Kanyoni. Yeah. Okay. So Kanyoni coffee, please, if you can, we have this as well here. And it's just amazing by Dr. Gladys' mother also wrote a book. So we have such a array of joining walking with gorillas. And just before I close, and let's say, is there anybody with a burning question? Okay. So we have two people. So you're gonna close for us.
I'm going to close. Ladies first.
Right, thank you. First of all, I would like to say thank you for this experience of the session. I'm a veterinarian as well. Started working in wildlife, and I think it is interesting to look at your perspective in terms of correlating wildlife conservation and health with public health. And I think as vets, when we get into the field and practice, we have a bias towards just maybe disease control and just disease management. What spaces do you think veterinarians and just vet professionals can take up space in promoting wildlife conservation through other avenues like public health, sensitization, welfare advocacy and awareness? What other spaces, or how would you advise for young professionals coming into that space to take up more space in that and different approaches to use to combine that? Thank you.
Thank you. So it's wonderful that you're here. You're a vet working with wildlife. Are you a full-time wildlife vet, or it's part of what you do, top of domestic and wildlife?
It's what I work primarily in animal welfare, and one of the aspects that I work with is human
Okay, fantastic. Yeah, you're right. There's a lot that we can do as vets, and that's why the vet profession is amazing, because you can do so much with it. You can contribute to conservation, agriculture, public health. You know, I'm currently actually on the World Health Organization scientific advisory group for origin of novel pathogens because of the work we did during the COVID pandemic. And on that committee, there's 27 people from around the world. And 4 out of them are veterinarians, and 2 out of us work with wildlife. And so I'm glad, and they like the fact that we do so much community-related work, because most of my colleagues in there are working in very big laboratories, they're public health experts, they're medical doctors, and there is a lot that we can do as vets. As you mentioned, there's a lot. I mean, when you want to move animals safely, you have to have vets on the team. When you want to, you even can stretch further and say, when you improve the health of community livestock, they're more willing to protect the wildlife, which is something else we're doing, like at Queen Elizabeth National Park, which is a savanna park, very similar to the parks here in Kenya. Something the Maasai, you improve the health of the Maasai, they're more likely, less likely maybe to kill the lion if it comes and eats their cows. You know, it's just finding innovative ways to find that vets are also needed in all those places, you know, to attend to any animal welfare issues in conservation, at the junction of conservation and community health, conservation and public health. You always need to have vets in all those different spaces. But I would encourage young vets who come on to be very open-minded. Not only, I know a lot of people, where I trained in UK, it's all about small animal medicine, it's the most lucrative. So you're taught a lot about treating cats and dogs. And then later on we go to other species, like what they call exotics, like rabbits or hamsters. And then, then the horses, for those who want to go to equine, cows. In fact, when you read it in the book, when Dr. Droma said to me, oh, now we have a vet, we have some elephants. Instead of killing them, I want you to move them. I was like, what? I've only worked with cats and dogs, horses and cows. How do I move elephants? And I actually came here to Kenya to learn how to move elephants. Because there were elephants from where I reserved to South National Park. I worked like a Kenya service team. Also came back to Kenya to collect some giraffes on Lake Nakuru, to take them to Kidepo. We're only down to 1 female and 5 males. And now as I speak, there's over 50 giraffes. Those 3 giraffes we brought increased the number to 35 after 15 years. So there's a lot that we can do. I was actually told to write classification and reproduction policies and all kinds of things. Program animal management policy. It was a very, very, very exciting first job, I have to say. And I hope you enjoy reading Working with Gorillas.
Yeah.
Let
Next, Ray.
me just say first, wow, it's incredible. And for me, I was the book. There are also many black writers in the space. And how did you get here?
a great question. I would say yes, there are very few black writers. It's both a challenge and an opportunity. And there are very few women writers in the conservation space. I was very, very inspired by Dr. Jane Goodall. She's written the forward for Walking with Gorillas. And she has written so many books. And actually, she inspired me to want to write just as I finished working. And that was, in Uganda Wildlife Authority. I really wanted to write because I was inspired by her and I was almost all her books. I went to her talks in London and she was like, come and visit us in Gombe. I went with my sister, Nanchi, and we're the only two Africans, Black Africans in the whole audience that day. And she was very happy to see us there. And she said, come and visit us in Gombe. So yes, there's very few Africans who've written, but you have a hero here, Professor Wangari, the lady Professor Wangari Maathai. She wrote a number of books. And when I was interviewed by CNN African Voices in 2014, they said, Zane Bergie said to me, why don't you write Professor Wangari Maathai has written? Even if you write one page a day, start writing. So I really started thinking of writing again. She really triggered me to start writing. The challenges of this, some of the challenges we have. We don't have a reading culture. In general, in Africa, we're more like we like talking, sitting by the campfire, telling stories, but we don't necessarily put the wonderful stories into a book, onto a paper. And unfortunately, we're missing out on so much important history. Whereas people from Europe, America, even India, I went to India for a conservation conference, where many people had published books. Some were launching them. I think other countries are really far ahead of us. They're more literary than we are. Apart from South Africa and Nigeria. But Kenya is ahead of Uganda. So you don't get a lot of support around you. It's not an enabling environment for writing because a lot of people around you are not writing and they're not encouraged to write. So I think we need to encourage each other to write. And then within the conservation space, I would say conservationists are shy people. We just want to be with our animals out in the field. We don't want to express ourselves, be vulnerable, tell people our challenges we're facing. And yet that is the only way that people will come to appreciate the animals. And so when Dr. Jane Goodall started writing, she got people to really understand chimpanzees and how intelligent they were, and how we need to protect them, and how they're so similar to us, making tools and everything. And when the late Dr. Gladys wrote Gorillas in the Mist, and the film was made, everyone understood that gorillas are gentle. They're not like King Kong, like Hollywood makes them out to be. So people can understand one of the biggest advocacy efforts he said to be conservation advocacy is the book Working with Gorillas. People are reading it even beyond our community. They're reading it in many parts of the world and other audiences like here at Alliance Française. And it's another way of people to get to understand what they're doing. The challenges we face is finding publishers. It's difficult to find publishers who, because they're like, especially if you're trying to publish outside of Africa, they don't consider, they're like going, well, a black person trying to publish a book, who's going to buy it, who's going to read it? So you have to overcome that barrier as well. It's much easier for other people because they see people like them writing and they think those will be the readers of the book. Yeah, but we've had such a great reaction to the book. People are really excited about it. Lots of people want to come out and do work in Africa, so they're happy to read it and learn how to do it. And they're realizing that they need to work with the local partners and empower them and work closely with them. They're not coming from other countries to tell us what to do, but they're coming to work together with us to make the world a better place. And I hope that comes out strongly, that we are able to lead conservation efforts, and we just need to get support from elsewhere. Thank you.
Thank you. We have one final question.
Is it okay if it's not a question? Is it okay if I don't answer my question because I think I'm audible enough?
I think you should because it's on
recorded
on Zoom.
Bonsoir.
Bonsoir.
Je m'appelle Opema, and I am not a public health officer. My mother is a veterinary doctor, and I currently work in a completely different field. But how I came to learn about you, Dr. Kalema, is through what I watched the videos and since a video.
Wow.
Then when that happened, I realized, oh my God, everybody's trying to go to come, but all the videos just a cross. So for me, it's a real appreciation. I've had the pleasure to meet this gentleman who told me, hey, yo, Chief, why don't you just come and walk with me? I show you some of like, so I work with the gorillas. I said, yes. You're going to help somebody.
Definitely. I'm looking forward to it.
And I think I'm going to get 4 more titles for different films.
Fantastic.
Yes, for me, it's a real appreciation. To say the truth. You don't get such forums to talk about something that is personal to the general public. They need to understand what is going on. The nature of Kenyans is this. If you don't educate them, they'll go with what is put in document. I'm proud of you. May God bless you. Like another one.
Merci beaucoup. Thank you so much.
Okay, we have one. Okay,
Maybe allow me the last question.
okay, last. Or is there another last? Okay.
My name is Chandra. It's quite a pleasure to be here. I got to know about Gladys through the documentary and African Forest Save the World. And I was very fascinated because it was featured there and since then I've followed about. My question is, you want touched about, you mentioned that there's a point where there's question in coaching. So I'd like you to touch on the aspect of what happens when somebody coaches an animal, perhaps a gorilla. What is your wildlife management in terms of following up on wildlife rights? Because I am currently on the second year of following the passion. I am an advocate of the High Court of Kenya, and I think I'm trying to do something that makes me happy, and I have the privilege to work with crimes against wildlife. And I'll really be happy to have an idea of how you handle wildlife crimes in regards to gorilla. Do you handle it on a community basis? Are there wildlife investigators who are involved? Is the prosecutors involved? Is the commission involved? I would be happy to know about what extent happens when crimes happen to us gorillas, despite the fact that you only matter of public health, but I'm so sure it will have an impact on calming illegal wildlife trade and illegal wildlife poaching. Thank you.
Yes, that's a very important question. And I would say that because of the benefits, that the indirect benefits and direct benefits tourism and improving healthcare has brought, we haven't had a lot of poaching, but when we have, it's been very dramatic and devastating. It's normally the gorillas that have lost their fear of people, and so they're much more easily killed. They've been speared. And the first time, I'll tell you there are 2 cases, and I mentioned them in the book. The first case that I really got attached to, a playful black buck called Mizano, which means playful in the local language. He got into a fight with a hunting dog of a poacher. And the poacher speared him because he really valued the hunting dog. And he was using the hunting dog to hunt daika, small antelope and bush pigs. Poor Mizano was speared. They followed the blood of the dogs because the dogs were bleeding right to his home, and they managed to find the poacher. The police dogs came and they followed the police, and he went to jail for a very short time. Was able to come out with just equivalent to $20. And who told us about this? It was our community members we work with, the village health and conservation teams. They said, can you imagine? Only $20 after killing a gorilla. So I was really outraged. But between that big killing and the other one that happened during COVID, there was a lot of sensitization of the magistrates. They had to understand a gorilla is very important. One gorilla group brings over $1 million a year to the country, just one gorilla group. You could have between 6 to 30 gorillas. They said, and other species, the elephants, the lions. So the magistrates started to understand. So 9 years after that, there was another killing. This time around, it was during the pandemic. When they were hardly any. Again, the person who killed the gorilla, which is interesting, he had ever received a goat from Uganda Wildlife Authority. But he had forgotten about the goat because when they took his photo, they looked at the old photos and said, wait a minute, this is the same guy we gave a goat so that he can stop hunting, and he's killed a gorilla. And so it was obvious that that doesn't really work. So when it happened 9 years later, and Rafiki was killed, another head of another group, now Rafiki was heading Nkuringo Gorilla Group, and he was killed, and this poacher was setting snares for bush pigs and daika. When he went to spear the bush pig and he screamed, Rafiki charged to protect his family and speared Rafiki. That was terrible. It was a very bad day for conservation. This particular poacher was 11 years in jail for killing the gorilla, the daika, and the bush pig, which was a victory for conservation because, before, you can't imagine $20 someone gets away with it. And now, and that time it was only handled at the local level. This time around, it went a bit higher, and the Wildlife Authority was quick at publicizing it. All over, it was on CNN, BBC, it was a public outcry. And so the magistrates now have been educated, and they gave them a fairer sentence, hopefully to deter other poachers. But us, because we work with the communities, closely, we realize that there are going to be other people like that poacher who are going to go in and kill animals. Because when tourism disappeared overnight, people were stuck. They were using money from tourism just to buy food, not even digging in their gardens anymore. So to prevent other killings like that, we started to engage them with fast growing seedlings. We can grow between 1 to 4 months. We call it ready to grow. And we gave it to 1,500 homes who said we are poaching because we are hungry. And one of the beneficiaries was that very poacher's wife. She was one of the beneficiaries. She actually had a smile on her face that day because we thought we need to cope, and that's when we got the full story when we met the family. They trusted us enough to tell us the full story of what happened. Of course, they knew he had done something wrong, but he's going to jail for 11 years. And his wife was only 22 years old, with 3 children under the age of 3. So I think it's important to have very strong wildlife penalties for crime, but you also have to spend a lot of time preventing it happening. If people are poor and vulnerable and hungry, what are they going to do? You're still going to have wildlife crime. So you have to address it holistically.
Yeah, amazing. And thank you for that question because it just touches and reminds me of Dr. Jane Goodall's words about working with gorillas, where she says, I recommend this book to everyone interested in conservation, alleviating poverty, and the role of women in society. But perhaps the most importantly, it is truly an inspiring story of how one determined and dedicated woman overcame many setbacks and faced many dangers to follow and realize her dream. And I think that is one way that we can contribute today and say, thank you so much. One dedicated woman who shows us that there's so many possibilities. So a round of applause for
Thank you all so much for the wonderful questions, and I look forward to signing your books. Merci beaucoup. En alliance française. Asante sana. Merci beaucoup.
Thank you. Now let's get our book signed. Yeah.
Okay.
Even the band. We move this so that be in the video. We move the table across. I'm saying just sliding the video, sliding this needs to be in the frame. Oh, it's in the frame. It's a little bit. How's that?
We're still streaming. Really? Yeah, exactly, exactly. I'm like, this is exactly my sort of life. You need to be really excited. Like, oh, yeah. Exactly. It's good to listen to the Bible No, I wasn't there. I just saw it. But you like it? Yeah. I don't like you know what I mean? The issue now, I even told them, like some, somebody else. This is what I mean. Yeah.
They got an image of what they went and I love that. And then everything. What's wrong with this? You never replace it. I don't think it's
sometimes it's funny because myself is not going on, and then it just puts it around everything. So, yeah, so I think the next thing is and even the kids that yes, when it's just like a straight out deal. Yeah, no, exactly. Girls are really sweet. I mean, they don't exhaust you, but wait.